to Video Waves. My name is Hillary Carrigan. Today in the studio we have a 6th-generation guitar maker who's not only carrying the family's tradition, but is also strengthening the brand throughout the world. In the studio today we have Chris C.F. Martin IV. Chris, thanks for being in studio with us.
My pleasure.
Sure. So would you tell me a little bit about the company? We're 181 years old, started in Germany.
How much time do we have?
We have a little bit of time.
Okay, it's quite a story. My great-great-great-grandfather grew up in a small town called Marknerkirchen, which is in Saxony. It used to be part of East Germany not that long ago. Worked with his father in what was then my family's business of making furniture. He took an interest in the guitar. The guitar had worked its way up out of the Middle East, and along the way had become pretty much the instrument we would recognize today as a guitar, but it varied along the way. His father managed to help him get a job in Vienna, Austria, where he worked for a fellow named Johann Stauffer for several years, and he learned how to make guitars there. He came home, and while he was away, the violin makers said, we should get into the guitar business, and they didn't appreciate my great-great-great-grandfather coming back. They didn't want him as competition, and my family had some acquaintances who had emigrated. So they were aware of the fact that, if you come to America, there's plenty of opportunity. And in 1833, sailed across the Atlantic and came to New York City, where he started the business. Mrs. Martin was not happy. She didn't like New York. And so she came out to the Lehigh Valley to visit her friends.
It was Mrs. Martin.
Saw the gentle rolling hills, found people who spoke German, cooked German food, grabbed Mr. Martin by the ear, and in 1839 they came to Nazareth, sort of. Nazareth was still a closed religious commune. And if you weren't born and bred Moravian, you couldn't live in Nazareth. So they bought a piece of property just above Nazareth in Cherry Hill and lived and worked there until the town incorporated itself in 1858. And then in 1859, they moved downtown and built the first part of what we today call the old factory. And then his son joined the business, carried the business through the rest of the 1800s. And then Frank Henry, the 3rd generation, joined the business around the turn between around 1900 or so. And my grandfather was pressed into running the business, ran it with his father, and then when his father passed away, he ran it by himself until my father joined the business in 1955. He caught the folk boom. Business was so good, we had to move into a new factory. And then folk music and rock and roll collided, business got better. And then my parents were divorced, but over time, became more and more intrigued with the business, and then graduated from college, and then went and joined the family business, and now I'm the heir apparent, I guess you would say.
Chairman and CEO.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
What was it like for you? I mean, did you feel that burden of this looming CEO thing? Were you ready for it?
No, the divorce that my mom and dad had was bad. Things ended badly, and my mother never talked about it. Never encouraged me. I would come back and visit, for a week or two in the summer, but I just didn't think about it. It wasn't like my mom saying, hey, when you're ready. She's like, your father's a bum. Don't go there. And I was going to go to the University of Miami. I was going to study marine biology. Because I thought, I'll bet they get to scuba dive every day.
Yeah.
But I had been working. I did work in the factory in the summer just to get some spending money. And a friend of my father's who had a music store came to visit one summer, and he said, "You're going to join the family business, aren't you?" I said, "I don't know. Go to Florida." And I said, "Oh, so you like warm weather?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "All right, why don't you come to California? I'm sure you can find a school to go to. We have plenty of colleges out there, and I'll give you a job in my music store, and you can see if you like it."
Interesting.
So I did. I went out, got accepted at UCLA, and worked in the store. He put me out on the sales floor, and within a day, we both realized I knew nothing about my family's business and felt like an idiot. And he felt like an idiot for thinking I could sell Martin guitars. Then he said, well, why don't you go out back and help John, the repairman, repair guitars? And John was very nice and very helpful, and quickly realized I didn't know how to repair guitars either.
Wow.
So I called my mom. I said, I'm quitting college. Silence on the phone. And coming back, and I'm going to work out in the guitar shop, which is what I did. I came home, I moved in with my grandfather, and did a quick rotation, learned some of the jobs. I learned a lot of respect for the folks that do the jobs of building a Martin guitar every day. And I came here to go to school.
Yeah, to the school.
I came here at night and started to take some business classes. Now I realized,
Awesome.
okay, I should, I wasn't sure when I went to UCLA what I was going to study, but now it's like, okay, I should study business. And my mom kept saying, get a degree, get a degree, get
Yeah.
a degree. So I looked around and I found that Boston University had an undergraduate business program. I contacted them. They said, send us your transcript. They said, you know what, we have room. It looks like you want to study business, and we'll take all your credits, which was great.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I went up there and got a degree in business, and then came home to join the family business.
That was 29 years ago.
Yeah, now technically, this is interesting.
Uh-huh.
I just celebrated my 40th anniversary,
Okay.
but that's because they put me on
the board.
Well, they put
Okay.
me on the books
Uh-huh.
while I was doing my summer work, just to kind of get
That's
me
nice.
into Social Security and get me into the pension and all that.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Northampton graduate.
Yeah.
Now executive in residence.
Yeah. Right.
Can you tell me a bit about that program or that position? What does it mean?
Of.
Being the executive in residence. Like, what do you do with the students
Well,
here? Like today, for example.
They feed you very well.
They feed you very well.
I was a little late this morning. I'm jet lagged. We were just talking about that. I just got back from a 10-hour overnight plane ride. So I roll in about 15 minutes late, and they're kind of like looking like, is he going to show? He knows it's today, doesn't he? Got to talk to some of the students over at the Hampton Winds. Had a very nice breakfast with Mark and Sherry. And then Denise was my chaperone, and she took me to a class. And they do they run a virtual business in this class.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it turns out that Martin Guitars sponsors the class. And one of the reasons we sponsor it is that one of my coworkers, Chrissy Rinaldi, took that class here and made the connection between the company and so we're the sponsor of this virtual business class. And they do business with other business school students in other colleges.
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool. And then Chrissy has since gone on to get her MBA, so she's another.
That's great.
Started here and
Another success.
Right,
yeah.
right. The executive residence program is sponsored by the Schaffers.
Yes.
It is in honor of David's brother, who passed away tragically in a car accident many years ago. So I had lunch. My wife came, my cousin Robert, my sister Georgianne, my nephew Matt, who's working at the factory, my assistant Mary, my wife was there, and David and his wife were there, and Mark, and so we had a nice lunch with some of the board members that come. So it was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And now I'm here.
Yeah. Now
Yes.
you're here,
Yeah.
and you just gave a talk over in just in
All
one
right,
of the other rooms.
I gave a kind of a talk to anyone who showed up, and it was standing room only.
Yep.
And a lot of what
there, yeah.
a lot of what we're going to talk about, the history of the company and my experiences, some of
Yeah.
my stories that I've told.
Yeah, one of the stories, one of the things that I liked that I heard was that one of the things in your great-grandfather or your grandfather that you really, really admired was his sort of civic duty, his sense of the community. What are some programs or projects that you're really excited that Martin's involved with, or that you're most proud of?
Well, we started a foundation a couple years ago, and in hindsight, I said to myself, I wonder how big the foundation would be if one of my ancestors had started it, but at least I started it.
Yeah.
And in fact, Sue Kubik, who used to work here, is on the foundation board. So the company gives the foundation money, and then our mantra for the foundation is to philanthropically support 501c3s, that's who we give money to, organizations that benefit our employees, which pretty much means Lehigh Valley, or organizations that are focused on flat-top steel string acoustic guitars.
Cool.
Just because we had to narrowly define it, otherwise, who knows? It is, I know people get disappointed when they contact the company or the foundation and they say, we have this charity and we do great work with violins. And we write a letter back saying, that's great. We give money to organizations that do great work with flat-top steel string acoustic guitars.
You guys, flat-top steel strings.
Yeah.
This makes me think of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, who's done an exhibit.
Yes.
Going like chronologically through the process of making a guitar.
The exhibit dovetails with a book that was written last year that took a look at my great-great-great-grandfather's early work and what was he thinking as the guitars evolved. Because if you put them together chronologically, which is what they did, they said the guitar changed throughout his career. What he started making was very different than what he ended up making. And really what came of that was him looking at the marketplace in New York and saying, well, what I learned in Austria probably would benefit me if I was still in Austria.
Right.
But what people are buying in New York and in the Northeast in the United States are Spanish classic guitars. And that's not what he knew how to make. But he knew how to make guitars. And because he was a cabinet maker, he knew how to manipulate wood and make a quality wooden product.
Yeah.
So he copied the Spanish builders. He quickly changed from what Mr. Staupper had taught him to looking at the Spanish guitars that were coming out of southern Spain and not holding up well in the Northeast. You know, you think here's his guitar, comes out of the Mediterranean. Imagine a winter like we just had.
Complete climate
falling
change.
apart.
Yeah.
So he took his mindset as a German craftsman and his knowledge of guitar building, cabinet making, and ultimately made a better mousetrap. He made a better Spanish classic guitar at that time than the Spaniards were. And I think because he made it in the Northeast, if he sold it in the Northeast and it stayed here, it held together.
Yeah.
And that's what the exhibit at the Met shows the guitars in chronological order, and it dovetails. The book is now the catalog. You know how oftentimes
wonderful.
exhibits have catalogs?
Yep.
Well, that book is the catalog that you can buy if you're more curious after you see the guitars at the Met.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, this was interesting. I toured the museum just the other day.
Okay.
I live in Cherry Hill. I'm from
Oh,
Nazareth,
okay.
so
Okay. Yep.
I'm kind of there often.
Yep.
But I think one of the most beautiful things about your business, about the family's legacy, and you mentioned it earlier in the talk as well, is sort of that you have a challenge and an ebb and flow. Like, it's not only that you're a long-standing family tradition, but you guys have seen a lot. There's
Yes.
a lot of roller coasters and ups and downs.
It's ever changing. My family's been able to adapt. You know, when business is great right now, I gotta tell you, business has never been better.
Today,
Yeah, right now.
get out.
The company has never been this successful. And it's not through my doing. I think the guitars that my colleagues make are the best they've ever been. And the market is embracing them. There's an interest right now in acoustic music, roots music. You know, it's very authentic.
Coming back, yeah.
In my life, I saw the guitar, both the electric and the acoustic guitar, jump over the piano. It wasn't that long ago that in America, the most popular musical instrument was the piano. Today, it's the guitar.
Yeah.
But now what happens is the acoustic and the electric guitar vie for first place. Right now, the acoustic's doing better than the electric. It will change. I will try and hold that back as long as possible. So we have to be able to react when it does change, because we can't move the market. That's done by musicians. And at some point, they may get bored, or someone will come along and have an electric guitar and do something that will spark people's interest and go, oh, we got to go over there.
Right, exactly.
And that's, you know, the one thing is my family's been able to adapt to those changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The economic changes that my family has seen over the past 181 years, political changes, wars,
Yeah.
Spanish-American War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam. It's
everything.
amazing.
Thank you so much for being in studio with us today, Chris. It's really an honor. It's a pleasure to sit with you.
Thanks. I'm always happy to tell the story.
Thanks. For Video Waves, my name is Hillary Carrigan. Thanks for joining us.